methods. That's how it's introduced.
Good evening, everyone. I hope that our audience can see us. We've just been having a chat behind the scenes. Welcome to Christian, Signature Frags, Sean, Successful Reef Aquariums, and extra special guest, Leonardo from Leonardo's Reef. Thanks for coming on, and thanks for joining us, Leonardo. I've been following you for what seems like a long time. When was your first tank on the internet?
I think 2006 or 2007.
Yeah,
I had reef tanks before that, but then I was active online on Reef Central, and I think roughly around 2006-07. Yeah.
And you've had a couple of notable tanks, haven't you? Your kind of bare bottom, kind of very futuristic acro tanks at the time. I remember them being on Reef Builders, etc. And is that your style? Is that something you still do? Very minimalist, or?
Yeah, I think I didn't have a display for a long time. I'm setting up a new one right now, but I think still my way of reef keeping is keeping things very minimalist. So not a lot of biomedia, a lot of flow, big skimmers, keep all the detritus suspended. So that's still my philosophy.
All right,
for
cool.
20 years, I guess, almost.
So we're going to talk about all these we're going to compare you three and your kind of methods tonight, and hopefully there's going to be some crossover, but hopefully some different stuff as well. But firstly, I'm going to talk about some of the audience, and please, audience, just fire questions, because it's this is what we want to get on. And I'm going to start with you, John Wright. Good evening, John Wright, Gazza's Reef. That's Christian. Hi, Christian. You're on the chat. Norfolk Reefer, Techers Reef. Good evening. Who else? Pelagic Swimmer. Oh, he can't be with us tonight. One Armed Reefer. Good evening. Alan Othen. Evening. Gazza's Reef. Dave E. Just Dave. Reef Rondo. Oh, good evening, Expletive. Drippy, good evening, Drippy. Reef Rondo again. And I think that's Amanda Davison, good evening. UKM 120, Reef 216. Techers. UKM 120. Is that everyone? I've called you all out. Right, cool.
Thank you for joining all.
Yeah, so where should we start off then, chaps? Should we just carry on with the conversation we were just having? Should we start with a bit of aquabiomics and microbiome? Should we get straight into it?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah, fine.
All right, cool. So, Leonardo, you were telling us about live rock. What are your thoughts on live rock?
Well, I think it's essential for a healthy reef environment. Doesn't have to be a lot, but I think it's just the best way to start a reef tank, to seed it, get everything in there for the cycle to start first of all, but also, to create some stability for Acropora to thrive longer term, and to prevent all the nasty stuff with dinos and that kind of issues.
But knowing what I know about you acro guys, you're like complete control freaks. So isn't that a source of pests and algae? I can't see Christian.
Yes, it is.
Yes, I can't use Christian seeing live rock. No way. That's got to be
I do use
contamination.
live rock.
Do
But
you?
I think after using live rock again and again and again, now I've kind of figured out, okay, there's a better way to use live rock. So quarantining your live rock for one, a minimum 3 or 4 months, maybe 6 months, like conditioning it. I think fluconazole on live rock is a good thing as well.
Okay, and
I
that
think
treats
treating
algae,
live rock with, just nuking the algae away from it. I think, because it always seemed, as a coral farmer, I think once you deal with pests and things like that, because they're easily dealt with in quarantine, I think the hardest battle ongoing can be algae.
What about
if
keeping
something
it?
goes
What about
off
keeping it
balance.
in the dark?
So I don't what the live rock itself.
Yeah.
But the
Get
thing
all the
is, once
goodness,
it's
none of the
seeded that
algae.
system, you're going to like the system, right? So I think I
Would
know
have
there's a
to
lot of
in
this
some, yeah.
maturing systems in the dark. However, I think if you turn the lights on with LEDs, you're inviting dino along, even if you're using a live rock. So
kind of to keep a light on there to keep the calcareous algae, certain ones alive, but none of the pest algae, isn't it? That's why.
I was speaking to Jason Aquatics, right, and he's got a theory that because back in the day when we all used halides and T5s, barely anybody was getting dinoflagellates. Right, or these problematic things, and he thinks it's because of the UV spectrum or that fuller spectrum that's in that bulb, and it's kind of nuking it in the water. And whereas when I switched from halides to LEDs at the farm, within 2 weeks I had dinoflagellates everywhere.
Wow.
So I think there's some truth to it, and I think it's definitely something I'm going to employ going forward. Is every tank will have halides in some manner above them.
What are your thoughts, Sean?
So I've some people out there will probably know that I'm quite an advocate for using older school methods. So metal halides, T5s, that type of thing. It's interesting what you're saying about the dino and that type of thing there, Christian. But I've often wondered and thought and experienced myself that since the introduction of more LED lit aquariums, I don't know if it's just a timing thing. I seem to think that there might be a bit more problems with acro pests as well. And I've often thought whether that particular UV spectrum that's being given off by these halides are somehow interfering with the life cycle of these pests. I mean, I remember a long time ago when Isan from Triton split down his tank. I mean, everyone probably remembers that tank with that massive clam in the middle.
Yeah.
The information that I took away from that was when he split it down, all of his acros had flatworms, but you never ever saw it. I know we all know that healthy acros can deal with pests, maybe not thrive with them, but I mean, some of his colonies were like 2-3 foot across, right? So there's who knows? I think there definitely needs to be some more investigation into that, and if the regulations allow, I think that there's probably going to be some sort of comeback when it comes to halides. Who knows? I know there's a supplier near me that's got a good stock of radium bulbs, so I'm all right.
Nice.
And Leo, we were talking. You've got some halides running behind you.
Yeah, they're not fired up yet, but we're working on a new show tank. It's right here behind me. And it will make use of some halides in combination with Radion Blues. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting mix of lights, mixing old with new. But this is purely going to be a display tank, so not for propagation. So I'm just having this for my own amusement, so to say. But I'm also enjoying a lot of the old school, if you can call it that way, the old school techniques and the old school way of reef keeping, and halides is one of them. So I do enjoy the look of it and also the results that I had with them in the past.
And what bulbs are you putting in there?
Yes.
Yeah,
I think, want to know. Come on.
I think the holy grail of bulbs when it comes to spectrum, I'm using the BLV, the Ushio 14,000 Kelvin bulbs.
14.
Which is pretty white, actually quite yellow, but in combination with the Radion G6 blue, it gives a very nice overall look. And also all the benefits of halides when it comes to spectrum. We have a spectrometer actually, and the two combined is just basically the perfect spectrum that you can have, ranging from all the way from 350 all the way to up to 800 nanometers. Everything is covered with a nice peak around 430 from the halides and 440 and 450 from the LED. So yeah, everything is covered, and it also looks really good. So I think it will make a very nice combination.
You kill us, Shimmer. All right.
Are you
Yeah,
ITC.
shimmer, but a very nice way of shimmer. So not the LED shimmer, but the halide shimmer, which is much more natural. Yeah. Sorry, Sean, what did you want to say?
There's a bit of a lag on mine. I think my internet. I need to go and put some more coal in my Wi-Fi router. Basically, I wondered what the spectrometer was you were using. Is it the Senai Spectra?
No, I'm using the Hopo color right now. It's a Chinese brand, Hopo with double O color. I can grab it later. I got it directly from China, and it's not cheap, but not as expensive as a professional spectrometer. So that's what we use right now. It's connectable to your PC or laptop. You can export all the data and play with it a little bit more. Yeah, so it works quite well. We have the Senai as well, but we are promised to get a new one, an updated one. So I'm definitely going to try that one out as well, and just compare the two results with each other. Yeah,
brilliant.
Yeah.
I can see a lot more people going back to this halide look. Did any of you guys by chance see the Polo Reef side-by-side tanks?
Yeah.
And he's got the halide versus the LED.
Yeah.
And for me, it's the halide is the winner. The rendition of the color to the picture, doesn't it look incredible?
Yeah, you get like the pinks and stuff, don't you? And I think that everyone, including yourselves, would probably supplement with some blue LED for the pop. Yeah. And I think that's what he's done, isn't it? I don't think anyone is just using halide for 8, 10, 12 hours a day, because you just don't get the blue anymore.
No. But with the blue, you kind of get like a flat look, don't you? I mean, you get the pop, but it does flatten a lot and subdue a lot of colors. But if you can, it's always nice when you look at a reef and you can have acros will look great in the daytime spectrum, and then you flick the blues on, all of a sudden you're looking at a different set of acros because those are the ones that pop. But if you can look at them all at the same time, that's the best of both worlds, right? Well, why wouldn't we do it? So I've actually worked out in my farm on an 8x4 table, it would cost me the same price to run 3 halides and 8 XR15s as it would 8 XR30s. So that's what I'm going to do going forward. Get the same coverage. Why not?
Well, heat maybe.
I don't mind the heat. I don't mind the heat. It's not that bad. And if you're running air cooled like Leo's got behind him, you don't see it at all. Like you said, I mean, in winter we want the heat. It's bloody cold in here.
Yeah, I think heat is only in this big of a facility. Heat is only an issue for 2-3 months. I think in Northwest Europe. Other than that, heating is the biggest cost here in the farm when it comes to electricity, heating costs. So, the halide's producing heat. It's actually a nice thing to have. It heats up the room, heats up the water. So for 8 or 9 months a year, it's actually a welcome addition. Plus you have the full spectrum as a bonus. In defense of the LEDs compared to halides, a colleague of mine, Dream Corals, he's in the same city down the road. He's having a show tank with only Radion G6 Pros. Yeah. But he's using because he's a dealer. He has them, around a lot. So he's using, I think, on 2 meters, he's using 10 of them. I think every 20, 30 centimeters, and then 2 or 3 rows. Everything running on 100%, all channels 100%, and it looks incredible. The color rendition is perfect. The growth is phenomenal. Are you saving electricity when it comes to those LEDs compared to T5 or halides? No. Is it saving any heat? I don't even think so, because those things produce a lot of heat as well. 100. If you're covering your whole tank with radions. So I think with radions you can basically achieve the same results, but you're not going to save any heating or electricity or any cost. And you have to spend a lot more on the fixtures. So,
it's funny, isn't it? Because the same thing happened with T5. We all ended up using like 8 T5, and most tanks, say it's a 5-foot tank, 500 liters. You tend to use 400 to 500 watts of light, whether it's LED, T5, or halide, if not slightly more. But it's interesting what you say about the Radion Pros on full spectrum, because that's what Sanjay does in the States. So he has everything 100% full. And as we know, he was like a halide man. So,
these guys look phenomenal, don't they?
Yeah,
and he grows them like stink. You know, they're just growing out of the water.
The thing is that the problem between quotes is with the radions is that you can tweak with, you can tweak the spectrum so much instead of just an on and off button. I think if the radions would come with only on and off and just everything runs at 100%, maybe you can dim them only with intensity. That would actually be the best, because people cannot tweak with the spectrum too much. People would give the corals a lot of full spectrum, which is, I think, still the best for especially Acropora. And
that's what I said to them when AB Plus came out, and AB Plus is good. There's no denying it. It's brilliant for growing corals. And I said to the British distributor, I said, why don't you just have a light that's just AB Plus and they can't play with it, exactly like you just said, because people are going to want to mess around with it. Just intensity, fade in, fade out. That's all they need. And they were like, well, that's kind of what the blue is, but the blue is when it's on 100% is AB Plus. You can still knock it out of whack effectively. But I've got some questions anyway. For Sean, does he prefer to cook his acros for a long period of time or short?
So historically, I've always run a 12-hour spectrum, but it kind of ties in with what we were currently talking about. I actually prefer to run just blue. So with metal halides, I know it's not as deep blue as what you can get with LEDs, but the 20K radium bulbs. But for example, I know I said earlier, what's lighting me now from this direction is an 8 bank of T5s, ATI T5s, just because I couldn't get the light in the room. But actually I have them different bulbs in there. I just have blue bulbs normally. So I generally try to run more of a blue spectrum for a longer period of time. And actually, just in case anyone out there wasn't really sure what was going on with me, I run a maintenance business now, and all of my customer tanks run exactly the same way. So 12 hours of intense 100% blue, all the blue channels, UVs, and I undoubtedly there would be some health benefits to running more full spectrum, but I prefer just to run the blue. I find it actually helps with keeping algae down. Customers, I'm going there once a week, once every other week. It tends to keep the algae off the glass a bit more, and I do miss pink colorations though, like them ones.
Yeah, you just don't see them under LEDs, do you?
Yeah, you don't much.
Are you running any white at all? Any of the white channels up at all, or are you just running the blues at 100 and saying that they're just running 0? Yeah.
I think, and I did actually mention this to one of the guys at Ecotech once a few years ago, that I used the blue channels so much that I really wanted them just to, when they were bringing out the Pro and the blue, I thought the blue was just going to be blue. Like, I'm using hardly any of the capacity of the light because the channels just aren't being used.
Have they solved that for you now with the blade, the glow?
To be honest, I had a go with one of those when they first came out, and I really liked the glow. Had a similar coloration to the old actinic 03 bulbs used to get, like a T. That was a T8 bulb back then.
T12.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, inch and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of like that purpley kind of blue, which you can get with like the royal blues from on the Radians. But I mean, to be fair, any of the blue sliders, even on the AI lights as well, I just run them all 100% blues, UVs, violets, all just 100% blue for me.
Yeah, I love a bit of daylight, at least 4 or 5 hours a day. I feel it's so important. I don't mind it looking under blues, but I love the rendition under both. I feel for me, I get better growth and health of the coral with that mixed spectrum.
I didn't know that, Christian. I thought you were true blue. I thought you were blue as anything all day long.
I think when your acros are looking good and they're healthy and they're coloured, they look good under whites as well. Yeah. When they're suffering, then they only tend to look good under blues, I find. Do you know what I mean? It kind of masks them. But yeah, I feel like they crave that daylight. So it's interesting what you say, Sean.
Thank you. We've got Pete Parry has joined us. Jam, Reef Rondo.
Hello, Peter.
Jack Rapora, Reef
Hello,
King.
Jack.
Evening, everyone. You got any questions? Obviously, please send them through. Darren McGinty.
I'm sure Jack's got some killer questions. He
Please,
likes crucifying me.
please send them through. I've got a question for the three of you while we're waiting for some other questions. Do you dip newly imported maricultured acros from Indonesia? And do you dip wild collected acros from Australia? If not, why not? And if you do, how do you do it?
I'm
Christian.
brutal, you know. I am
Go on.
brutal with my imports.
Go on.
And as soon as I'm taking them out of the box, I don't play gentle. I don't rest them. I don't think acros need resting. I think they need sorting out straight away and then healing and recovering, right? So, I mean, the bases come off. If I can't see inside them, they come apart. They are dipped in multiple different dips, and they're cleansed before they touch any system. I don't believe in resting them to let them get used to water before you're dipping them. I think just get it out and they're straight in the QT. So I'm brutal with acros, and I find that's the best way. It cleanses all the crap off them, all the biome or whatever it is. Just seems to cleanse them, and then they seem to settle well for me. I have much higher success rates being brutal with them.
Here's a question,
Christian.
Do you slime your acros up before you put them in?
See, I don't even believe in that. I think some of them will get slimy, but then some are so thin branched. But if you let them slime up, they don't slime up. They just dry out and the flesh peels away. I don't believe in that. No, I've seen a lot of people just lay their corals out on top of the tanks, and we've had a fresh import. And I think to myself, now they are absolutely screwed. Like, just get them in the water, keep them happy, what they want is oxygenated water as soon as possible. Really, do you know what I mean? Flowing through them, cleansing them.
I agree with
what they need.
Once you've been, I mean, I use the I think that might be another question possibly, but like the potassium chloride dip, reef primer is what I use. But I find that it kind of does take their slime coat off, and I found that they, like you say, they look like they're drying out. They lose that shininess if you do leave them out to slime, and like I say, try and get them back into the aquarium as quickly as possible is how I progressed on to.
Yeah.
Liam,
how about you,
what
Liam?
are your thoughts?
We don't do a lot of import. So if we import, well, if we buy new corals, we actually go to the wholesale physically or to other hobbyists physically, and we just, inspect every individual piece. And most times I just get 4 or 5 pieces maximum. And I can just pay a lot of attention to them. First of all, inspection. I think visual inspection, very important. I will do it at the wholesale. If I see anything suspicious, I will just leave them. So the ones I take home, they're same as you, Christian. They have a 2-month, very, very strict torture of quarantine, dipping every week, switching between 2 systems. We have 2 quarantine systems running basically individually at the same time, so I can disinfect one system if I put them into the next one, back and forth. And in between is all the dipping and all the treatments. And when they come out, they look like crap, but at least I know for sure they are pest free. Then they go into some sort of observation tank, which is still separate from the rest of the farm. They will go in there for a couple of months just to see how they recover, see if they grow normally. Sometimes within the skeleton, there's some boring algae or other crap that basically doesn't show up sometimes immediately if you cut them, or just weirdness. If the tissue looks a little bit weird after a while, just toss them away. So, and after those a couple of months of that observation after quarantine, I'm feeling safe enough to introduce them into one of the main systems. And I do only add them to one of the main systems, and the other ones with all the mother colonies, which are very precious to me, that is basically closed off for any new coral. And I try when one system is full, I try basically close it off for any new fresh introduction of corals. And I will only use different tools, different hoses, different pumps for every separate tank. So if a system is full, it's basically closed off forever, between quotes, and I will never introduce anything new anymore. So that's how I try to keep some sort of tiered way of quarantining everything and keeping everything separated from each other, just to keep the pests out, even if they could slip through quarantine, because you never know. Maybe we don't know about certain pests right now that are only known in the future, and just try to keep them out.
It's all you can do, isn't it? Due diligence. I think the longest it's taken me on an otherwise clean acro that's been dipped and been treated, had the base cut off, and I thought was clean, but was still in the quarantine system.
Yeah,
2.5 months, and I was thinking it had the most perfect base out of every acro there. And then all of a sudden, I saw micro trails of bites. Almost looked like flatworm bites, but much smaller, and a fine trail, wiggly trail. And I thought, this isn't right. So I dipped it, and this weird black slug type thing with a hammerhead. It was shaped like a dome, and its body went down, almost like an arrow with a rounded top. It whizzed out this thing.
Planaria, yeah.
And no, it wasn't a planaria. It just, I don't know what it was. I don't know the Latin name.
I've experienced before, actually. I had a real bad shipment come in with those, and I couldn't find any writing on those, and I called them blue bugs. They're like slugs, and they move very good. They glide. They don't zip around. Glide.
I think you're talking about the new acropore eating flatworm, the one that lives inside the corallite.
No,
is that the one?
No, they're bigger than that. And these things don't seem to die. It's just you chuck them in. Unfortunately, you could pop in, but they were savage. That was probably 6-7 years ago that I saw that. I've only ever seen them once, mind.
You don't want to see them again, do you?
No.
It's scary.
Okay, I've got a question.
Quarantine.
From Jack Rapora. If you take a fresh maricultured Indo and a wild Aussie and place them next to each other, do you think there is potential for a bacteria and biome conflict?
I had this conversation with Jack the other day.
And it was
I honestly believe that there is, even though I've still continued to do it. I still put them together. I had a conversation with Claude Schumacher years ago, and he basically told me that you should never put Aussie acros in the same tank as Indos. I think actually we're probably more to maybe with the microbiome. I'm not really sure about that too much. I'm still quite new to that sort of side of things and the whatever. But I believe that if you've got a pest that originates on an Indo coral, I think, and vice versa, the Aussie won't be as tolerant to it, and I think you can end up with some real sort of nasty effects that those parasites would have on, or those pathogens would have on, vice versa coral.
Yeah.
Leo, you got any thoughts on that? I know you said you don't import, but any?
Well, we only do Indo. Very simple. We totally stopped Australia for, I think, for more than 4 years already, just because the success rate is much lower, keeping the corals happy long term. Maybe because of the interference between different regions, but it limits a little bit of the species you can farm. I think Sarmentosa, Speciosa, the nice Speciosas, Spatulata, those are all not possible coming from Indo. I think we just made a choice, Indonesia only, and it works well for us. So some customers are asking, like, I want to have a nice Spatulata, but we were never very successful with them anyway to keep them longer than 2-3 years. So, we decided just to stop and not wasting any money on them anymore and just focus on the Indo. Yeah.
But
definitely could be something microbiome related. I also heard it with the Malaysia stuff. The very low success rate with Malaysia stuff also has to do with the mix up of those microbiomes between different regions, and people who keep the stuff from Malaysia separate have a higher success rate. But I don't want to do different region tanks and everything. It's too much of a
of a hassle. So I would just stick to indoor.
Would any of you three ever run UV or ozone or?
Yeah.
Go on.
Who wants to go first? Shall I go first?
You go first.
Sean.
I do like using UV, and I historically have used ozone intermittently, just more for water clarity more than anything, especially when running halides. Do like to take that yellow tinge out with ozone rather than carbon. I think carbon can be a bit too aggressive, but UV, I would say, was more for sort of like the control of things like certain species of dinoflagellate. Long term, maybe be a bit more relaxed on changing the bulbs, but having them on there, definitely I do recommend that. I definitely do see some benefits to having it on there longer term. Kind of goes against, really, I think we'll probably touch later on with our techniques, if you like, or our methods that we like to keep our tanks. It probably goes against that, but don't forget, I look after 57 people's tanks on a monthly basis, so I need to make sure that there's some fail safes in there for when I'm not about.
Yeah, makes sense.
Christian, UV or no UV?
See, I use UV as a tool when I need it. I don't implement it 24/7. I think, like Sean said, some of those dinoflagellate species would go into the water column at night, like Corlia, Ostreopsis, those types of things. Then I'd treat that with it. Even if I had a really bad ick outbreak, I'd overload the UV and just run it on the display itself, not the sump. But I think it takes a lot of the waterborne biome out, some of that healthy stuff, which is keeping the balance in the aquarium. So long term, my belief is that it allows more room, if you like, for the bad families and biomes to take over and go out of ratio. So I feel like UV is probably bad 24/7 for me. I've had much more sex without it. Along with ozone, I think ozone's great on like LPS tanks. I use it on the QT. I think it's great. I've had less success running it on the SPS system only, full time. I think on the SPS, I've just lately been doing a little bit of carbon, a tiny amount, so it's not so aggressive and removing the traces, but just give me a little bit more water clarity. But I think the ozone can. I don't know. My acros look better without ozone, for sure. 100%. So.
Well, we use everything: ozone, UV, carbon, but only in tiny amounts. So we're talking about 5,000 liters of water. I'm using a 50 watt or 54 watt UV unit. So it's basically nothing. Just with a very low flow rate. I'm using a little bit of ozone, 25 milligrams, also on a 5,000 liter system. So it's also just almost nothing. Just as a precaution, that everything, if anything builds up in there, it's a little bit eliminated or actually pushed down a little bit. Also, I use a tiny bit of carbon. I change it out every week, not too much that it's stripping out some of the the micronutrients or the trace elements, but just a little bit, just to keep the tinting of the water low and just take some of the organics out, but nothing extreme actually. So I just believe in heavy skimming and a lot of water changes. That's basically my only method that I use. So
do you run your ozone 24/7 or just through the night?
Everything 24/7. Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be said for like heavy skimming and removing all those dissolved organics. I think that's the biggest contributor to the loss of corals, if you like.
Yeah, you also prevent a lot of buildup of detritus, because when you skim very heavy, you're actually able to take out some of that detritus that otherwise builds up in different spots and causing all kinds of issues long term. So heavy skimming is definitely something we believe in. We try to get a full cup every day.
Nice. Have you ever done a skimmer water change?
Yeah.
Not.
Do you know
really.
what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I did actually when I do a very heavy cleaning of the tanks, like cleaning the bottom, because we never have any, sand. So cleaning the bottom and all the windows when the whole tank is super cloudy.
because we scraped all the racks and blown off the rocks and everything. I did a super wet skimming and just put a hose on the skimmer cup and do a water change that way. And you basically clear up the tank within 1 or 2 hours. It's totally cleaned up again. So it's a very effective way of doing an effective water change. Yeah.
I love the sound of that, Sean. Were you nodding then? Have you done it?
Yeah, I used to do that. I used to have a big tank, a big display. That was how I did water changes. It's very, very effective, especially if you're messing around in the sump and you've kicked up something. We didn't have reef mats back then, so it was a bit, filter floss and whatever else. If you're kicking something up, or even after you've done some fragging, just to remove that slime that's present in the water column. It's really effective. Really, really good. Don't know how true it is. I mean, you, Leo, you saying about you use it sort of. I've just completely gone mind blank. Start that again. You fill your skimmer up once a day.
Yeah.
Is that? I assume that's like a very weak tea color.
Yeah, just tea colored. Yeah, not super dark tea. I think a light tea, like iced tea colored. Yeah,
like beer.
Yeah.
So the skim rate is to fill a cup a day, no matter what the color, right? Yeah.
No matter what the color, I just fill up the cup.
A few years ago, quite a few years ago, I was explained. I think it might have even been Red Sea Kev. I don't know if you guys remember him with Ultimate Reef. I was having a conversation with him, and he was saying about phosphate harboring bacteria, nitrate harboring bacteria, and this whole idea of wet skimming and all the rest of it, and being able to wet skim to a very, very light tea color would mean you'd actually remove more phosphates than you would sort of dry skimming, and that's kind of imprinted in my brain of how I set a skimmer up anyway. Is just to, it's a bit annoying for some customers, but the skimmer ultimately, toothbrush in there every day. I know we've got now skimmer lids that you can rotate. There's Red Sea and whatever else. But yeah, keeping that skimmer clean and along the same lines as Leo's, filling that cup up every day is massively important.
Yeah.
Really
I still believe in heavy import, heavy export. So I do like to feed the tank a lot without worrying about any buildup of nitrates and phosphates, just to keep the particular matter in there quite high after feeding, but also not let the water quality affect it. So the heavy skimming also allows me to feed very heavy every day and make the tank super cloudy with all kinds of frozen foods without being, without having a phosphate level of 0.1. Because I think the Acropora look best with a phosphate level around 0.06 and a nitrate level actually below 2. So that's what I try to keep. But combined with the feeding, it's only possible if you skim very heavily. So
yeah, I think that's one of the biggest misunderstood phrases in reefing is heavy in, heavy out. And a lot of people just think it just means fill your tank with junk and then run loads of GFO or something like that. And you completely decimate your system. And it's all about...
When people see my parameters and they see like, oh, only have like 1 ppm of nitrates, you must be very, very careful with your feeding and very careful with, with your fish. Do you have any fish in your systems? I said, yeah, I have loads of fish. I have, clouds of chromis fish and everything. I just export a lot as well as importing. So the corals have a lot of food actually, but there's not a lot left in the water to decompose.
Yeah.
Okay. On that note, let's just have a quick look at your farm, Leo. I've been sent 2 videos, one very short and one slightly longer, and then we'll go to a question. And also we have a new viewer stroke listener, the Spiritual Reefer. My first time here. Looking forward to getting to know everyone. Good evening, Spiritual Reefer. Welcome. So, right, let me find this video. Leo's farm number 1.
Shall I give some comments or just some
Yeah.
voiceover? Yeah, this is some of the mother colonies. Actually, these are my favorite mother colonies.
Was that a spathulata?
Where? No, it isn't. Many people ask me, but it came in as a Millipora like 3-4 years ago. Super slow grower, but maybe it's an Indospatulata, but then I would have like a first. This overall of system 1 and system 2, both 3 meters long, mostly filled with frags, a few mother colonies in between here and there, and no Australian corals. So the coral that you see right now in the middle is not a Spatulata, but we have some Abrotanoides here, also from Indo, obviously, and a lot of Millies, a lot of Tenuis, a very few LPS, only like 3 or 4 here and there. So it's basically 99% acros. I try to combine mother colonies and frags in the same system as well, just also visually pleasing. And
looks great. You've got far more corals than I thought you had.
This is only half of it. So this is the tank for photography and really frags that are ready to be sold. And this is a nice banana plant. And I do have more upstairs, because most of the mother colonies are actually on the first floor physically, but also in any way separated from anything that happens downstairs.
Lovely setup. Lovely corals. May I ask, is that a mirror you've got on the wall there, and is that to reflect light back in? What's the purpose?
Yeah, basically all the tanks are enclosed, could be enclosed. They're open right now, but they're actually lids that I can put in front of it, just to close off all the tanks. First, to keep the light in, because all the walls are mirrored, so to keep as much light in as possible, but also to keep all the moisture, salt, mist, everything, because all these hoods are basically directly ventilated out of the building. So if I want to, I can close up all the systems, and all the salt, mist, and all the moisture is directly sucked out of the building. So the atmosphere in here is very very nice, not very moist, not very warm. In the winter, I try to keep them off, just to keep the heat inside the building and don't let it suck out directly outside. But I think I think salt creep and all the salt mist is one of the biggest enemies of a coral farm, because it will destroy everything long term. So when I designed the farm and all the setups, I really kept that into account, and I really wanted to be able to take away and directly extract it outside if I want to. Yeah.
What do you reckon, Sean? Would you raid a few corals out of Leo's connection there?
I definitely saw a few there that I'm debating getting the old passport out, actually.
Yes.
I've got a question, actually. Was that an Australian stripey I saw you have in there, the fish?
Yep. Yeah, I have stripies in all systems. I think they will eat everything except for acros, which is great. They will eat polyps. They will eat any worm, some LPS as well, but I don't have a lot of LPS. So they are ferocious eaters of almost everything. Sponges they will eat as well. So I really love them, because they eat everything except for acros, which is perfect.
Fantastic.
No, because they've been not readily available in the UK for a long time. They were very expensive.
Yes.
PMC got a batch of them in recently. Well, I think there's been a few batches recently, fairly recently. And they were really small. And I managed to get a few from AAC up in Essex there. And I've put these into customer aquariums to deal with aptasias and the like. But wasn't really sure long term. There's quite a bit on YouTube of Australian people, using them in their tanks. They seem to say that they're okay, but you don't really see the same kind of corals that we get over here. So I was interested to know what else they're going to annihilate.
Well, we have a few of those Symphilias. We have one torch colony and some gonios, and they won't eat those. But I think if you put in some Micromusa, I think they will eat those ones.
Yeah.
Lestomusa probably as well. So I won't consider them reef safe, but I would consider them Acropora safe. I'm almost sure they are. Yeah, but we have some in every tank, so I could really vouch for their safety when it comes to acros. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. We also use them to clean up new live rock. So if anything is on new live rock we get in, we just put them in the tank. They will totally destroy everything that's on there. So it's great.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe get rid of the fluconazole and employ some
Yeah.
strikers.
Good
Yeah.
tip.
They
Sounds
will
good.
strip it. They will strip it. Yeah.
You've got a fan on. Reef Rondo says Leonardo is a coral god. Stunning, my man. Absolutely amazing.
Well,
Merry
thank you.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Right, should we go to the question? So we're going to deal with this one a bit differently. Dave E. Stroke Just Dave says, what parameters do you all try to keep? The main parameters: salinity, temp, alk, cal, mag, nitrate, phosphate. But I want to deal with this differently, because let's just talk about if anyone keeps any of their parameters starkly contrasting to, say, natural seawater, because otherwise we'll be all night talking about it. Is there anything that you three do that's different to what we would expect?
I think probably my take on nutrients may be a bit above what other people were suggesting.
Go on.
I mean, the usual calcium and magnesium I try and keep as close to natural seawater, so quite low alkalinity, sort of 7.5.
Okay.
Magnesium I try and keep sort of 1350, sometimes 1400. Calcium 425. But my phosphate, I would say the minimum of 0.1. And as we were saying off, that's why I asked about the Trident MP, because mine at the moment is reading 0.9 phosphate. So I mean, even that's a record for me, but you know, it works. You know, nitrates, I don't really look into nitrates being bad. I do use those as a guide to whether I'm feeding enough.
How bad is bad, though? Are we talking 10 ppm? Or are we talking 100 ppm?
Listen, if I was going to advise somebody to do it what I call the Sean method, it would be 0.1 and 10. Yeah, so 10 nitrates.
Yeah. 100 times ratio.
That's a 1 to 100.
Yeah, but you know, currently I'm at 23 on mine. Am I worried about that? No, not at all. If it was 30, would I be worried? No, not if the corals are looking good. Yeah, I understand that there's you know, we're in the presence of the sort of like the acro god over there and Leo, but and I probably would get better colors, but you know, I like growing healthy corals that are, you know, grow fast and all the rest of it. I'm not saying that his aren't, because they definitely are lovely corals. It's just how I've done it. Probably laziness more than anything.
Christian, anything different?
I've got pretty boring with it, I've got to be honest. I've tried the high PO4 train and, you know, the elevated pH, kind of the Chummingham's Reef method, and just smashing them with as much power as they take. I just think it's an expensive way to reef. I don't see the point in spending the extra on the wattage of the lights when I can get adequate growth for my means to sell enough rags to make a living, by just running them a bit lower and keeping phosphates around 0.06. Seems to work well for me. Maybe my salinity, I run my salinity quite high, about 0.27 or 0.36 ppt.
Interesting.
Yeah, I like that. I think it keeps traces slightly elevated and maybe more available. I'm less interested on what my individual trace levels are on ICP. I'm kind of like of the Jake Adams remit of it, where I add them as food. I see them as like a consumable. So if I know it's going in, I know the corals are getting it.
Yeah.
I'm less mad scientist like that. I think if you're constantly doing an ICP and you're adding a trace, it's been, you know, eaten by the corals, and then you're adding it, it's up and down, and that creates instability. I think everything should be at a constant. So I'm happy with the ratio that they're being dosed with all the other elements as part of a 4-part or 3-part, whatever, right? So nothing drastic other than maybe my salinity.
Leo.
Yeah, same here. We do add traces every day, but it's a tropic marine trace mix, so the A and K elements. So basically the classic balling method. So we do add all the traces 24 times a day, basically. But they also, most of them show up low on ICP, but we don't really care about it because we know we add them every day. Same as you, Christian. So I think, except from low traces, for most of them, I don't do anything different than natural salt seawater. I think when it comes to nutrients, we run a little bit low nitrates. I would say we try to keep it between 1 and 2, but sometimes it's even lower than that. Phosphates around 0.06. We get good growth and coloration with those, and it's easy for us to keep them that way. I think that's also important, where you really have to fight to keep them higher. You're gonna, add a lot of nitrates, or we just let things settle in at a certain value, and if the corals are happy, we're also fine. So I'm not gonna chase those numbers.
Are you still adding the urea for your nitrate, Leo? You still on? You still playing with that?
I don't add any nitrates anymore. We tried to dose some urea. I tried to do it when I start a tank to give it some sort of a boost, to keep that nitrogen cycle a little bit up. But I don't know. I ran a little bit higher nitrates for a while, and I actually noticed slower growth. I don't know why. So I stopped it again and just keep things. I just stick to feeding a lot, and that's it.
Just on the question of your nitrates, are you employing any method to keep your nitrates low, or is it just heavy skimming?
Just the skimming. That's it. And I think the corals take up mostly. The corals take up the most. Yeah.
I have a bit of theory based on something somebody once told me a few years ago. And I kind of agree with it, is that if you feed your feed your fish multiple times a day, there's always going to be a constant addition, roughly every 4 hours after the fish is digested, an element of, or an increase in ammonia. And the corals will use the ammonia as a source of nitrogen much more easily and readily than breaking down nitrate. Right. And I wonder if that's why you've got such low nitrates. Whether you took a different. I mean, maybe we'll get on to coral nutrition later of how I do it, but I wonder if that's the difference why I don't have problems keeping high phosphates and nitrates.
Yeah, I definitely know for sure that ammonia is a much better source of nitrogen for corals. I think that has been well documented.
It's the same for aquarium plants as well.
Yeah, it's the same for them as well. I think it's just an easy. I think nitrates are basically a leftover nutrients when the nitrogen isn't used or taken up any other way. Of course, corals can still use nitrates, but they have to do a lot more effort to do so, like you said, Sean. But we feed a lot. We had a lot of amino acids also coming out of that food, a lot of ammonia produced by the fish, and also by the bacteria breaking down the food in the water column. But I think not much is left for the bacteria to really break it down into nitrates. So, yeah.
The spiritual reefer, my phosphate is steady 0.06 to 0.08. However, my nitrate is often lower than I'd like at 1 to 3 ppm. Is it worth chasing higher nitrate?
No, I wouldn't chase anything. That's my opinion.
That's when you get problems, right? When you start chasing.
Yeah, and I think
it's stable. It's good.
Yeah,
I think stable is the stability is key over an infinite number. But I do believe that there are some set parameters that you should be within. Definitely not 0.9 phosphate. Don't do that.
No. And when you notice like some corals don't like that low nitrates, especially LPS, I can imagine. You can also
try to give them a little bit less intense light, because nutrients and light also are really interconnected. So if the corals don't really respond well to the lower nutrients, you can also just dim down the light a bit, or put the corals in different positions where they're not receiving so much intensity, and they can bear with that low nutrients a little bit better as well. So even with very low nutrients, you can keep all the the LPS corals. Also, if you have heavy import, heavy export, if you feed the LPS a lot as well, they can really bear with those very low nitrates. You just have to keep them fed. So it's also a little bit of a myth that LPS don't do well with low nitrates. I think it's a matter of feeding them, or giving them not too much intensity light combined with nutrients.
Christian, are you barking?
It's my dog. It's my dog next door. Right on cue. Okay, so let's talk about, do you guys run ceramic media at all in your systems or in your client systems? What are your thoughts on that? Because some of them seem to be pretty effective at nitrate control in their own right, which kind of led us down the path of thinking we need to dose it. Do you do ceramics, you guys?
I've got them in the systems when I set the systems up, and it's more kind of, I think of housing, I think for biome, rather than kind of for nutrient reduction. The thing is, when you've got a mass of corals in a tank, that's your nutrient reduction method. And the challenge is keeping them in. So like Leo said, you're just feeding constantly, and then keeping the pollution out. That's the secondary challenge, right? But yeah, I employ the media. I don't know, I can't say why I do, and I couldn't advise people to do it. I think it's good to seed and then pass along to others. I think it's a great way if you can keep it submerged. But I don't know. I don't think it's massively important if you've got a load of live rock in your system.
Sure.
So I do use ceramic. They're not ceramic, are they? What are those?
The max spec ones.
Yeah, they're like a polymer.
That's what I use. Yeah.
I've used the probably get shot by one of the reps here, but the Marine Pure ceramic medias I found were terrible for contamination with aluminium and tin. So I quickly went away from those. But the max spec ones seem to be pretty inert. Quite happy with those ones. But yeah, more often than not for bringing sort of like a diversity into a tank that's set up with dry rock, like a real reef rock display, or Carib Sea shapes, that type of thing. Personally, I don't use anything like that, and actually you might be surprised to hear that my current coral tray over there doesn't have one piece of rock in it. It's only got water, coral, and a protein skimmer.
Keep it simple. I like it. Leo?
Well, I think the amount of live rock that we use compared to the amount of volume is, very, very few rocks. And the rocks that we have, we keep somewhere in the sump, so it's really cryptic, completely dark. But I think maybe it's one rock per 500 liters or something. It's really, really low amount. Basically, it's the leftovers what we used to seed that tank when we started it up a couple of years ago. We just left it in the sump there. It's all grown, a lot of sponges are on there. So we think it has some benefits, but I think it's so little, it doesn't really make a huge difference. So we also run the tanks without a lot of biomedia, but the biomedia that we use are all live rock. So that's it. And sometimes it's nice, if you have a quarantine tank, when you think like, it's going a little bit south, the water's getting cloudy or whatever, you can always add a rock from the tank, add it to there, get the, the good bacteria back up a little bit, and of course toss the rock afterwards. But and sometimes a customer that want to start up a tank and is very afraid of any pests or whatever, very, overcautious, we just pack one of our own live rock out of that tank into a bag and ship it to them as a service. So yeah, that's it. But we don't use a lot of rock or a lot of biomedia at all. Yeah.
There's a guy on YouTube, an American YouTuber, an acro guy. I forget his name, but I used to follow him. He doesn't post so much these days, but yes.
Euphoria.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he said, they're great, aren't they, his videos? And he said, you don't need anything that's been invented in the last 10 years to grow acros. Let's talk
Quite
about
right.
that.
You know, it's all gone full circle, hasn't it? And everyone's kind of, finding the old technologies and how good they are and raving about them, right? Like the halides and the calc, but it never changed.
I think almost everything that has been invented the last 10 years made it harder to be successful with acros. I really believe so. It made it very easy for companies to make money, that's for sure. But I think it made it harder for people to keep acros. And I think the best proof of that, if you look at the tank of the month, because that's basically the top tank of the month, which is online, so it's top of the best of the best. If you go back to 2006, 7, 8, 9, maybe, a little bit into the 10s, the Acropora tanks were, well, nothing that you see anymore. There were tanks with Acropora as large as, you really have to hold them in two hands, like not even dinner plate size, but like double or triple those. Right now, if you look at the best tanks, it's just not like those tanks, not as majestic as those tanks anymore. I think, Jeremy, your background, basically almost this was possible in 2006, 7, 8, or 9, with just halides, salt, good salt, the bulling system, a skimmer, but without ICPs, without LEDs, without roller mats, without fluorescent acrylic holders, without fluorescent tubes or anything fluorescent.
It's ghastly.
I'm sounding like an old man. I know I'm not that old, but I'm also not that young anymore. But I think he has a point to some extent, and I think it's definitely harder for people who start right now to decide what to buy and just start with the right equipment and skip all the useless stuff that they actually don't need that much. So in some ways, the hobby became easier and cheaper, but also it became more difficult in making the right decisions, I think, because
Probably
you have so many options.
Is the choice, right? If you, like we were talking about the Radians, if you've got, you're the ability to use these sliders, fantastic. But what does it all mean to the average customer? That just to grow some corals, and that is the biggest thing. My job comes about because people can't grow corals. And I take all of that questioning away by set and forget, put it on that, keep this, test that and keep that to that level, like a foolproof plan. It might not be the absolute Leonardo's Reef spectacular system, or the ultimate signature frag system, but these customers are able to have great success with their aquariums, just by taking away that. I think there's too much choice, basically.
Yeah.
Control, not enough info.
I think there's a lot to be said for giving people success. So it's great, because if you've not experienced it, I mean, that's all you need from the hobby, right? Is that success that you're giving them. So that's great. That's great. I think these days there's almost like a toolkit, a reefer's toolkit that they think they need. So you get into the hobby, everyone who's just got into the hobby, who might be your friend, who's got you into it, they're like, right, you need all the Hannah test kits. And then you're buying test kits which are tested inaccurately or can't repeat the tests, right? You're buying X, Y, Z because you think you need it. You're buying all the snake oil foods because you think, even though you've got 3 frags in your tank, you're pouring all this food in. And it just goes pear-shaped straight away. I also think, why you don't see these huge, big colonies anymore is because the hobby's gone very much collector. Everyone on Instagram has got a logo, sees themselves as a coral business, maybe, wants to sell frags. People don't get a chance to grow out a beautiful colony anymore. There's just not, the culture of the hobby's changed, right? I just think it's a different era we're living in now. And that's why you're not seeing these beautiful grown out aquariums. Yeah, I mean, we used to get by with a Salifert test kit, a halide light, you know, and that was it, right? That would suit us, and we did just fine. We grew out beautiful corals, albeit they weren't these rainbow tennias, right? But you know,
I think
to
that's
us at the time.
Well, is the types of corals that we are actually conditioning the customers into wanting. They're not the fastest growers. They're not the easiest to keep. You know, if you gave somebody an Aquapora Valida or an Aquapora Nana and said, right, you know, put that in your tank, I'll see you in a year's time, they might not be that proud of it compared to some of the others. But for me, the growth shape, you know, those lovely rich purples, those blues, that to me is as good as any tenuis. And I think that's what newcomers to the hobby didn't experience, was growing up with buying those. Back then they were 29 quid for a maricultured, you know, a random species. You could buy a deal on 3 of them, and you might get one that you recognized a bit, and you kind of, oh yeah, that's definitely a millie, you know. But then you get one that you're like, oh, what's that? And you grow them out into these large colonies and be like, wow, that's amazing. Like, you don't really get that now, do you? Everyone buying stuff to frag up, and you know, it's a tricky one.
Yeah,
People want Instagram tanks, right?
Well,
I mean, I remember when.
Go on.
Sorry, can you remember Tricolor Tennius?
Yes.
Tricolor Tennius was a name, right? That was a thing. That's all you used to get. If like you used to get a one color Tennius, or an exuberant one would be a Tricolor Tennius. Yeah, and everyone wanted that. And now it's rainbow. That's before rainbows came along, right? Sorry.
Yeah. And I think also it's harder to get useful information because of all the boards. The bulletin boards don't really thrive that much anymore to the same extent as they did in the 0s and the 10s. So I think for a beginner to gather their information mostly from social media, it becomes much harder to get a reliable source of information, also consistent source of information, and people discussing with each other and being a spectator to that discussion and learn something from that. I think it became much harder. And I sometimes go back to those old bulletin boards to just get some more info or just get something confirmed with information that's sometimes 10, 15 years old. So that's insane.
Yeah,
it should be, you know, it should be different, I think. Yeah,
I think that, you know, some people keep corals for the wrong reasons now. Some people do it for the resale value as well. I mean, if you take torch corals in the Northwest, they're absolute currency. You know, people buy one head of torch to grow it into 2 to sell that second head back to me. You know, it's just, and so you're never going to get that colony of torch, you know, because everyone is kind of grow it, clip it, sell it, you know, because they want it to pay for their hobby. But that then is at the detriment of, you know, the retailers, because it's like, well, they're meant to be going that way, not kind of back to us. So it's just it's a bit on its head.
Isn't it funny that you get, so some hobbyists will be disappointed because they think that they can't buy what they want at their local shop. And let me take a jawbreaker mushroom, for example, right? So if you've seen the trade prices on jawbreaker mushrooms, maybe they might be as low as 150 trade now, right? Or they were at 250 at the time. And I think it was Maidenhead Aquatics. They got stung. It was one of the Reef Keeper stores. They get stung because they advertise this beautiful jawbreaker at like £450. And the comments, they were just getting absolutely annihilated. Like, how dare you rip people off for this? And you think, hang on, they haven't actually got a real markup there. Yet the hobbyists are selling them at 150 to each other or 100 to each other.
Yeah.
And it's for, as retailers, we can't afford to buy and sell them at the price that you want to buy them. There's no market there because you can get them cheaper on the second-hand market. What's the point? So all of a sudden, that's one coral we can't sell. Then the torches, then another coral, then another coral. And then people moan that, oh, well, don't go to that store because they haven't got anything I want. Well, it's because they can't make any money out of it. It's not rocket science, but no one's got that kind of broader mindset to think about the bigger picture, right?
Sean's taking his dog for a walk. See you, Sean.
The collie, or the collie, and there's a bone hidden next to me somewhere under a cover, and he wants that bone. But then the Labrador's obviously protecting it. So
Okay, shall we take a look at Christian's farm if I can find it here?
Have you got some of my farm?
I think
Okay.
so. Well, it says corals. Let's have a look. Here we go.
I don't know what it's giving you.
What's
just
that?
that's what we call our budgie smuggler. I think Leo's got a much nicer, more accurate version of it.
Beautiful.
That's actually an Australian table. I think for a green acro, it's absolutely beautiful.
Mm.
Yeah. These are very small pieces here, but I just wanted to kind of, Tom wanted a bit of footage a few months ago, so I sent him a bit.
Oh, okay.
Nice little Tanius. That grew from a frag.
what are you calling?
Yeah, go on. What would that name be?
Well, that's a favourite. That's Pinky the Bear. That's the nicest Pinky the Bear morph I found. So I did a bit of a post last night on that species, Acropora cytherea. I think it's my #1 favourite.
Okay.
It's incredible. There's a nice millie there. Nice little table there. So unlike Leo, I've got a mix of Australian and Indo colonies. Now,
yeah.
God, that looks so tiny there compared to how it looks now. It was only a couple of months ago. So unfortunately, I don't know if you know, but we had a big crash back in October last year, and it took 80% of our mother colonies away from us. And these were huge mother colonies.
Oh,
that's a picture for later. Yeah, so we are big colonies. They're all laid out next to each other, and we were kind of peer pressured into doing a bit of a treatment because we had a problematic algae called ulva in the systems, right?
Yeah.
And all the acros were looking incredible, massive, not a problem fragging anything. And I did this ulva treatment, and along with it, which I knew would come, fluconazole, it decimated our acros. And we triggered a crash, and we lost almost everything. So a lot of this is what's been growing back from frags. So we've had to grow back from frags and kind of keep producing frags to sell and keep the business going over the last year. So they're just a mere, I don't know, splinter of their former glory, I guess. I look in the system today, and just comparing to the video you've got there, they've grown massively since. So
did you lose anything completely? Did you lose any lines of corals that you only really?
I did. Several, in fact, for luckily friends and customers have helped us source back.
Wow.
However, those corals I'm growing back from frags, right? One of them is our confetti, our Vivid's confetti, which is maybe a 1/2 inch splinter. It's got a little bit of a base now. Again, that's that same species, that Acropora cytherea. Absolutely beautiful. But it takes time, right, to grow these back from frags. But I guess the benefit to that is they're even more hardy now, right? Because they're multiple generation.
Spiritual Reefer, is Christian using orange filters or correcting in the post?
So we use an 85B, which is like a filter on our full frame camera. I don't do any post because I don't really know how to, and I probably haven't got the time. So everything has to come off the camera as it goes on the website. So when you're taking like 2,000 images, you haven't got time to mess about. So yeah, we use an 85B, and we use a Canon macro, a 60mm macro, and we've just got I've just got a 24 to 70mm like portrait lens for the Canon as well, which is great going to be great for the colonies. Yeah.
So what is an 85B? Is it like a colored lens?
It's like,
then
it's like an orange filter, but it's just perfect for a full body camera.
Isn't it a gel rather than an acrylic?
I don't know what it is. I mean, it's a glass. I don't know if it's a sandwich gel or acrylic between that glass. It's what Tidal Gardens uses. Yeah. So I was watching one of their videos, and I couldn't get that blue pop. You know, the filter shot that everybody wants to see on a coral, right? They couldn't get that blue pop of it without using something on the lens. You can do the white balance, but the trick is getting it to look on the picture somewhere between what it looks like with orange glasses on and kind of where it looks like under daylights to really get that nice shot that pleases everybody, right? Shows them what it's going to look like on their Instagram. Show them what it's going to look like to their eye. Yeah, it works well. It works really, really well.
Leo, should we talk about how you take your pictures?
Yeah. The videos you saw, and most videos we use on Instagram and Facebook, we just have the clip-on filters from Arca, I think. Oh, Christian is gone. The clip-on filters from Arca, and we just shoot with our iPhone. So very simple, not very fancy. And for our sales photos, so those are just for the online web shop, we shoot with full spectrum lighting and just the Canon big system camera with an underwater tube and no filters attached. But we use a little bit more full spectrum for those. So,
Sean, what's your experience with the UK market for orange lens, no orange lens, oversaturated? What's the kind of, as an ex-retailer, when did you get grief about it? Did you do a good job of it? How does it?
So I'll be honest. I'm a fan of the orange lenses, the orange glasses, the orange lenses for me, because I guess I've seen a lot of corals grown under more of a full spectrum light in the years gone by. And when these orange glasses came out, I think the original one, people using like the roses sweet wrappers were putting them on phones. It was all right. It worked a bit, but then I think, since we've progressed more onto that, it's rock hard to take a photo of a reef tank, isn't it?
Yeah.
And to be honest, my photography skills aren't great. I actually used to pay somebody to come in. You may have know him, Josh Silsbury. He's got a really good Instagram page where I think he does sell the odd photo and stuff as well.
His fish photos are really good.
Unreal. Like I've got photos still from the shop. Honestly, like the definition, and maybe one of you guys would be able to describe the color I'm on about, but like that richness. Christian, you'll be able to do it because you've got a good way with words. I haven't. It's that depth, the depth to the skin of the acros, that richness, and you see all the little lines going. Like he can pick out all of that, like unbelievable. I think from a retailer's point of view, if you were to take a standard iPhone photo, you wouldn't really have a business in very long, as in without a filter. I think there's some shops out there doing it a little bit over the other way. They're going a bit too saturated. So it's very, very difficult to get that right balance. And I said to Josh originally when we were doing the photos, I said, look, put these glasses on. I want it to look like that. That's how I want these photographs to look. And it is all, for him, it was post-editing. Does use a lens as well, the orange lens, 85B as well, which I believe are maybe discontinued now. I'm not sure.
Don't say that. I've just written it down. I was going to buy one.
Mysteriously, mine seems
typical
as well, and I've looked into it and I can't find them. You can buy these like square equivalents that you stack them together. They're not quite the same, but you can get away with them. But the problem is the thing's so bulky, you can't then put it inside like the Avast dipper lens. You like, so you either take it still water, all the pumps off, and hope a fish or a fox face doesn't come past, like nibbling the surface or whatever, creating ripples, or you've got to go through the dipper and make the most of it, really.
I think there's been a real shift in terms of because it used to be two camps, right? It used to be like, I want to see full spectrum and I want to see blues. And occasionally you get the old person who has to comment on a post, what's it look like under whites? And now I just say, a little less colourful, right? Or whatever.
Brown.
But it's funny that the people that ask for that daylight shot, when they share their Instagram post, it's heavy blues and filters.
Yeah.
But there's been a real shift, I think, especially in the last 5 years, that people are more wanting to see what it looks like under the blues because they want to know what it's going to look like on their social media. Certainly, I get asked a lot less for the white shots, but when my customers walk in the store, we run rights. They have to ask to see them under blues. You know, I appreciate them under all colours. But certainly, if you want to, I enjoy that pop shot. I'm a bit like you. I love the glasses. I love cracking a beer open at night, feeding the corals with the glasses on, and just in awe. Why would you not want to see your corals looking incredible?
Yeah, I mean that. Well, it's the Fritz glasses as well, isn't it? They're the best ones. Whatever it may be, they are the best ones.
Yeah, I do find though, as soon as you put those glasses on, you've ruined your eyes. You've killed your eyes. So it is nice to kind of enjoy the daylight in the day, enjoy the colours there, turn the blues on, enjoy the colours because your eyes kind of tune to the colour, right? But as soon as you put those glasses on and take them off, the colour's gone, right? Yeah. So you've got to do it in phases, I think.
Or just wear them all the time, like Acroman does.
That's it, you see.
John Wright says, what's the point of making corals look their best when their buyer could be disappointed? It's like meeting someone from a dating site.
Catfish. I don't know. I think this day and age, people understand what they're looking at. You'd think they would understand. Certainly, I'd say with a disclaimer, in no uncertain terms, if you want to see whites or whatever, come in a store or just ask us. We'll do our best for you. You know, we're not here to kind of dupe anybody. And I think the loyalty of our customers shows that, you know, so I don't really get people who say they're disappointed. We had one guy. Now I've got a Pikachu in my system and it's the most yellow acro. We've got a series of different yellow acros and people say, what's the secret to keeping a yellow acro? Buy a yellow acro, right? But there's a couple of people who bought this Pikachu and anyone who come into the store, it's the yellowest thing. It's like a bloody beacon, this thing. And they've put it in their tanks and it looks green to them. I'm like, hey. Whereas I've come people in the store and look at green acros or green corals and say, that's yellow. I'm like, no, that's definitely green. Right? It's bizarre, right? It's bizarre.
There's definitely some sort of colour blindness, I think. And I've often looked at a coral and thought, like, that's gold. And some people are like, nah, that's not gold. And I'm like, how is that not gold? I guess, you know, if you're comparing it to like a 24K Aussie torch, yeah, it's not gold, but it's like gold, you know.
Well, this kind of comes full circle because some of the people I deal with use or say they use the Hannah checkers because they're colorblind and they need it to read the number.
I've heard that.
But then you think, if you're colorblind, and there's quite a few of them, what does a reef tank look like to them? Because I feel like to me it's amazing, but are they missing like whole blocks of color? I don't understand.
I had a guy in the store yesterday, actually, bless him, David, and he told me he was colorblind and he's having trouble with his phosphates. He can't read a test. I gave him the Red Sea Pro to have a look at. It got a completely different reading to me, and the only way he can test his phosphate is through the Hannah. Okay, so his phosphates are up and down, but he was looking at rainbow chalices. He said, oh, that's a nice one there. I said, oh, that's actually a 6-color rainbow chalice because it's got the purple, it's got the red, the blue, and then the yellow, the green, and the orange rim. I can't see the rims. I can't see the purple. All I see is red and blue. I said, wow, strange, you're missing out. Yeah. What a shame. But then I think, actually, am I colorblind? Am I seeing colors that aren't there?
Yeah,
I do question myself sometimes, honestly.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, look at this. It's amazing. They're like, what?
The blue lights, these LEDs and whatever are actually damaging our eyes over long term.
I've been told that, and I've got one right next to me. I'm sat at my desk, and the blue light is piercing my eyes all day long. So everything looks a bit dark when I walk around the house. Not good.
Sean's just there catching a tan under his 8-bank T5. He's cool.
I'm not gonna lie, I am actually getting a bit of a heat off of that.
So, Leo, let's go back to your display tank. What's going to be your display tank behind us? You've got a bit of wave action going on there. You've always had high flow, haven't you?
Yeah, this tank is 3 meter by 1 meter by 60 high, and I got 10 SOW20s.
Oh, J-Cod.
I love J-Cod. If you didn't know, but I run them in my whole farm. Everything is J-Cod or J-Bow or Similar.
Interesting.
But I'm using like 10 of those in this tank, which right now there are two running. The rest is still off. So the wave is actually coming out of the water if I put them all on the same wave function. So I have to run some of them at a different pace or a different mode. Otherwise, the wave will come out of the tank. But there's no rocks in there yet, so I'm running the flow a little bit low because otherwise the fish will be too stressed. The fish only have some PVC tubes right now to hide in, and I want to document the whole process of setting up the tank and building the rockscape and just every step of the way in creating my perfect reef tank, my perfect acropora tank. I want to document everything for YouTube. But it takes a lot of time, and every step needs to be filmed, edited, etc. So it takes up too much effort. We just had a show last month, Vivarium, took up a lot of time preparing that. So the progress is a little bit slower than we wanted to, but the tank is running for 3 months now already with water and rocks in the sump and everything. So it definitely cycled, and it's definitely ready to go to create the rockscape. So that's something I really want to do over the holidays when I have a little bit more time.
I've got a question for you, Leonardo. Sand or no sand?
No sand, never use sand, never. I think I used sand 2 days in my life. I put it in, it was blowing all around. I took it out immediately, and that's, I think, almost 20 years ago. So I just run too much flow for sand. I want to keep acros everywhere in the tank, from the bottom to the top. Then you're not able to keep any sand. And I think I'm too lazy to keep it nice. I will admit I'm too lazy to keep all the sand in pristine condition, especially in a large tank. So I gave up on the sand a long time ago.
It's much easier to give up on it. Yeah, I'm sure those videos will be worth the wait, Leo. I can't wait to see them. Yeah.
No, I can't.
Yeah, I hope so. And it's really also for myself. I really like to show everyone what I'm doing, but also explaining a little bit more than I can do right now on social media, because I do answer a lot of questions from customers, but they're basically all in private messages, so not able to everyone. So I just want to show everyone how I do it. It's definitely not the best way, I guess, also not the only way to have success, but I just want to share all the experience that I have accumulated over the last 2.5 decades. I just show it to everyone. We were talking about it, Christian, a little bit before, just show people what you can do with our frags and how I enjoy the hobby, how I experience the hobby, not only as a coral farmer, but also as a hobbyist, because that's basically what I still am. I still am I'm someone who just enjoy looking at a nice reef tank. So I cannot wait to have this set up.
You can't lose sight of being a hobbyist yourself, and I think we do. Yeah. It's so easy to do in a trade, like we said before, with everything being a working coral, right? To have that set aside and to be around it is fantastic, right? And we can give something for our customers to aspire to, and I think that's crucial, because there's not enough acro tanks out there right now. I don't think there's never enough acro tanks out there, right?
I mean, you guys must be real acro freaks, though. If your holiday tank, if you know what I mean, is an acro tank. For me, like a holiday is a soft coral tank. You know, something completely different. You know, if I'm working with, say, tenuous all day in a shop, I get home, I want to do a dirty tank. I want to do something, lagoon style. But you guys, you have got the bug. Yeah,
I think when you're crazy enough to farm acropora, then you're definitely, you cannot go back, to something else. I think you can agree, Christian. You're also an acro guy, so it's the only thing we really enjoy, I guess. I really don't care about other corals. I really don't give a, about.
See, I feel like I have to, right? I feel I have to, and I'm expected to, right? And I have to supply something of other corals.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. We've got a little nano LPS display, and I love it. It looks incredible. But that's Louise's display. That's my partner, Louise.
All right.
It's her display, not mine, right?
Sean,
But-
what are your thoughts? Are you acro till you die, or are you
You
go for something fluffy?
I don't know. I think I've been in the industry on and off, or in the industry somewhere or another, either having my own business or working in a maidenhead or another shop or what have you, for 23 years now this year. And over that whole 23-year period, there's still a coral out there which I've never seen before, and it would be most boring coral to most people, and I still love them. Like those, there's acros out there which people will brush to the side. They'll be like, oh, I don't want that one, I want that one. They're the ones for me. Mostly, they're the ones for me.
Yeah.
When it comes to LPS and the other bits and bobs like softies and that, I've got an appreciation for them, but that's not my passion. Definitely Zoas aren't. They've put me in hospital before.
I frag zoas with my teeth.
Oh, you're a bigger man than I am.
That's why I frag them, spit them onto the plug.
No,
Hardcore.
I shut
go
down
on, mate.
Bedford Hospital for 45 minutes whilst they got onto the phone to the London College of Toxicology, and one had to be evacuated whilst I was literally stripped down.
Jeez. Bless
They
you.
thought they thought it was Novichok or something.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's got their Has suits on.
If you guys ever had, right, so for me, the buzz of the hobby when not having a tank that's a display tank is when I'm importing and I don't blind buy. I'm sure, Leo, you're the same, and I'm sure, Sean, when you were retailing them, you wouldn't blind buy, right? Don't take potluck. When I see that coral and I think of its potential and I get it, I import it, it comes alive, which is fantastic. I get it through the quarantine process, 3 to 6 months, whatever, start growing it out. 18 months down the line, and I've got this prize gem that turned into everything I thought it would be. And then I cut and sold that first frag. That's the buzz for me. And do you get that, guys?
Yeah.
It's pretty special.
Really?
What isn't special is when you spent all that time and you put that frag for sale, and then no one appreciates it like you do. I've also had that as well.
The biggest buzz I've ever had from this hobby is, I want to say 15, 16 years ago, I had a business which didn't get off the ground, shall we say, which was selling SPS frags, and I mainly did it on Ultimate Reef. Me and my brother decided we were going to do it as a job, and I was doing care work in the background, so it wasn't my main bread supplier, if you like. But I managed to get hold of a little blue Montipora digitata, quite a thick branch one. And I believe Paul, he's got it in his display. He calls it a Porites, but I'm sure it's a Digi. That coral I grew from a frag into like a huge colony, as it always does. And people still, all the time, they come around, they're like, "Oh, I've got a piece of this blue Monty, and do you want some?" And I'm like, "That's my coral."
That's amazing. That's a buzz. Yeah, it's cool.
That lineage is still going around, and there's probably there's probably like Barley Slimer that's like 30 years old in this country or something.
Yeah.
Just some real old classics, like hard as nails.
There are some like old school UK like corals, aren't there? And you see them come round and round again. I'm sure in Europe it's the same, Leo, that maybe they're not coming in on import anymore, but that's that gem from the past you remember, and you must have it.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I've seen tens of thousands of corals, I think, in the wholesale whenever we're browsing through there over the years. And we definitely have some corals in the farm that I got through hobbyists that are around for at least 20 years that I never seen one time during import. So I don't know where they came from, maybe from Fiji. I don't know, or just, something from Australia. I have no idea, but it was, you just don't find them anymore. I think
Where
right?
You in Germany? You in Germany?
Holland.
Holland. Almost, some people think it's Germany, but it's almost Germany. But it's a little bit closer to the UK.
I mean, We can't even get
all the
true
room-
pink Hystrix anymore.
Yeah,
No.
no,
It's because we run 14K lights.
yeah.
That's what people say, but I'm sure it was different. I'm
Yeah.
sure it was a different pink.
Yeah, I think so as well, because the Hystrix I kept 15 years ago, if you look at the imported Hystrix right now, it's not as super hot
No.
pink bright anymore.
It's like a peachy apricot color
Yeah,
now.
it's different.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's interesting though, because I think I tracked some down. I was writing about I think it was Tan Hoff's trip to Malaysia, and he went to a farm there, and there it was, pink Hystrix. So I think it's Malaysian.
Yeah, I think there's also a lot of stuff, especially the stylos and the Poeciloporas from Fiji that came from Fiji, which is also difficult right now. I think those also had those unique strains of Cereatopora and Poecilopora, which you cannot find in Indonesia or whatever, So that's also a factor. Yeah.
Has anyone tried those purple monsters from Solomon's?
No,
I've never had a true purple
never had
monster
it.
from
I've
Solomons.
never had it.
I've never been able to get one of them.
It's an OG US strain, isn't it? And I think even in the US now, it's quite hard to come by. It's not like it's not one of these blue light specials that the modern hobby is interested in. It's like an old school for the connoisseur of acros, right? It's someone who's actually
I think you're exactly right, because in my old books, do you remember like purple Formosa? Under white light, a purple Formosa is incredible. Especially in amongst all these beige acros, to have this purple stag, and now under blue light, it's just no one's interested.
No one wants it. Put it for £10, it'll sit there for months. It's not worth the space, unfortunately, and it's such a beautiful coral.
Yeah,
it's mental.
Pete Parry says you don't see Velida or Nana anymore. Anyone?
No.
we have a
I've got
couple.
some lovely Nana and Velidas. Yeah, I love them.
There you go, Pete. There you
Had
go.
them over a decade, it too.
Yeah,
But
but you have to really source the ones that are a little bit more special than the very occasional ones. So, but we do have some Velida. Yeah, for sure.
I think the problem is as well, when I've been involved in import and retail, it's just a 2-species race. It's just like half a box of Millies, half a box of Tenuis, and that's it. No
It
one
is these
really,
days, isn't it?
Yeah, no one really wants to, take any risks or order
really
off
have to get the
scientific
import
names,
list.
Yeah.
And go through those species and right, okay, that's cool. I'll have a I can't think of one off the top of my head, but a pink Pekimbensis. Yeah, that sounds cool. I'll take that. And just really kind of request what you get, and then you can get lucky on when it arrives. This is kind of blind buying, and most of it's rainbow Tenuis and Millie. I've even said to some suppliers, don't send me any more Milliopora, please. They're beautiful, but I've got loads of them. I've got 30, 40 different types of Millie. I don't need any more. I'd love them, but I don't need them. Send me some variety.
What's your? I don't want to jump the gun here, but what's your favourite species, or even a colour?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Favorite ever, bucket list. The Holy Grail. I know that's overused, but what? If someone could present that unobtainable acro, what would it be? Starting with Christian at the top.
So you actually showed it earlier. So the one I don't own and I've never owned, and it's Jason Fox, Fantasy Island, and it goes through a number of different names in the States as well. So at the end of that media that Tom sent you, there's a picture, and there's 2 pictures of it. No. So is the picture tied into the video?
Probably.
Because it is just a still picture at the end. Maybe you can pause it at the end or skip.
Yeah, I can't seem to fast forward it either. Move it. Okay, we'll let it play. Go on. Tell us about it anyway.
Well, this is a granulosa, right? And I'd like to see the other guys' reactions when I'm talking about granulosa. But this particular one is a green base and a burgundy body with a lovely purpley blue tip and bright green day glow polyps. It is the most beautiful acro I think I've ever seen. Now, the difference between a fresh import and a tank grown granulosa is huge, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you other guys would agree. And getting them to that point is extremely challenging.
Yeah.
Right? We're coming up on the end of the video, hopefully.
Here we go. Right, you're going to have to
But I don't
shout
like
when it
seeing
comes,
acros.
because I don't think I can pause it. Get ready.
Get ready. Get ready.
Here we go.
Tell me if you think this is incredible. And if
Drum
you don't
roll.
think it's not your cup of tea, there we go.
Oh,
Look at that. Look at that. I would take that over a 6 foot size 6 Swedish blonde any day. I'm sorry.
I thought you were going to say
would.
6 foot coral then.
I know.
Well, I'd have a 6 foot piece of it.
I don't know which suppliers you use, Christian. Be happy to say some after the chat if you don't want to say online. But there's there are some lists. There are some lists out there which are listing red granulosa, and I've often wondered whether the chance would be that you might get something like that come through.
I tell you now, Leo, and if you don't have it, Leo, Florin's got a piece. Florin's got a piece of that on import, albeit it looks nothing like that, but Florin's got a colony of that.
I don't think so.
Yeah. No, it doesn't look like that. It looks like a fresh imported granulosa, but I will send to you a screenshot after.
All right, send it to me.
And
I'm
if you
5
can
minutes
look at
away,
them,
so I'm 5 minutes away, so I can go there.
You should buy it. You should buy it and culture it, and then somehow get a piece to me.
All right,
but this, you should buy it and grow it because you'll love it. I'm sure you've got the ability to understand, like, look at an import, because an import looks nothing like a tank cultured coral, right?
Very different.
You've got the ability,
yeah,
to understand what it's going to turn into. So you can see that picture, and I'll show you the other picture, and you'll be like, yeah, that's it.
All right.
And I do this all the time, right? So I do this for a living because I'm always scouring what's about globally.
Yeah,
and I'm looking for those lookalikes, right?
Yeah.
Because they're all the same corals, but it is available. I just haven't been unlucky enough to find it. Sorry.
All right.
Well,
I will check it out for you, and then yeah.
Go on then, Leonardo. What keeps you up at night that you can't have it, you can't collect it?
Well, nothing. I'm very tired.
Nothing.
Every day.
You've got everything.
Tired every day. No.
Contacts.
What?
Got young children. That's it.
Yeah, I'm having a 2-year-old son, so he's keeping me up. No, seriously, I'm going for the opposite. A very boring coral in coloration, but in growth shape, it's really something I really enjoy. It's actually not really an Acropora anymore. It used to be Acropora pellifera, but now it's classified as an Isopora, and it is the most thick growing,
Like a pillar,
like pillar shaped coral. And I think if I was ever, I found it once in an import, and I lost it. I think it has been more than 20 years ago, and I gave every importer, every wholesale, the specific task: if you find it, just give me a call. I don't care how much I have to pay for it. I really want it. Well, no one ever came back to me, and I keep reminding them from time to time. But I think if you can grow that one into a colony, well, first of all, it takes 20 years, I guess. But second of all, if it would look so majestic. So it's still a coral that I wish I could acquire and grow into a colony shape. But I'm not sure if I'm ever going to be able to. So,
What's that species, Leo? Pulmia? Pulcher? What is it?
It's Isopora pellifera. And it used to be Acropora. I think Veron still classifies it, or his book still classifies as Acropora, but it actually looks a little bit more like an Isopora, to be honest. I really like it. Other than that, what is basically my Achilles heel? There used to be a hobbyist close to me who had I think 1 meter, put it like that, 1 meter large Acropora Florida colony, who grows into some sort of elkhorn shaped coral, which was extremely beautiful. And I never been able to grow Acropora Florida with the growth rate to be able to achieve that within 30 or 40 years even. So to have a colony sized Acropora Florida would be another dream of me to acquire. So it's more about the colony shape for me and the size than really the coloration and species.
It's one of those that doesn't really show its true form until it's huge, right?
Yeah, we have a few Acropora Florida, but the growth rate is quite low. And I know it can grow very fast, so I don't know what it is. Maybe if I put it under the halides, it will be different. I'm definitely going to try it. Another favorite of mine is the Acropora grandis, also because of the colony shape. We have one colony which is a little bit little bit peachy with pink. It's quite nice, especially on the full spectrum. But I think the shape again is something really makes it very special. It's called the Acropora grandis. It's also, we also have it right now in the farm, and it's definitely going into the show tank and really let it just grow out to be full-size colony.
Will it only be frags going into your display tank?
Yes, I really want to show customers. I don't want to cheat, basically, because we have very big grown out mother colonies, and I could fill up the tank within one day if I want to, but I want to experience the same as one of my customers would experience when buying my frags. So I would basically want to start with the same frags as I would sell and really grow them out over time. It's more about the journey and growing out those frags into colonies than really create an instant beautiful display for Instagram. It's more about the journey than really the end result. And the end result will be more spectacular if you really show it from the start to finish, right? Instead of just having the full-size colonies right away.
NSB Reef says, Aries Avalanche is my current favorite granulosa. Aries Avalanche, is that Dutch Ari de Jong? No, is that made up?
I don't know.
Not heard of it.
I don't know. I think I haven't heard of it, but I can Google.
Sean, what's your unobtainable?
I don't really have an unobtainable. I just like, I like it. I enjoy getting. I think these guys are probably more of like the collectors, if that makes sense. They're after names, and I just like the species realistically for what they are. And if they look banging, then great.
Banging.
I think, and I'm going to be a bit more boring as well with my favourite acro is the blue Acropora hoaxami, the one with the the green corallites. That under a nice nice spectrum of blue lighting, maybe offset with a barley slimer. That to me is a reef tank, like that just ultimate old school look with maybe a green shoulder green chromis swimming past it. Like that to me is ideal.
Yeah,
I have got a couple of nemesis corals. Historically, for some reason, Acropora carduus or the dragon species I struggle with.
Right.
Sometimes they grow like mad, and other times they just melt. And I've never really got down to why that would be. Whether these guys can tell me that, I don't know. But yeah, that's pretty much my sort of take on it.
Yeah,
lovely. I've got a picture
Leo?
of Harry.
Oh,
yeah. It's basically
okay. That's Aries Avalanche.
It's similar. Yeah,
Okay.
very close to that type. Yeah. Sorry, what was your question, Jeremy?
I was just
The
going to ask
nemesis,
if you do okay with the dragon acros or with
Yeah,
the
they sometimes die from the bottom part a little bit if they get really big. But we try to make a lot of backup colonies. So, and yeah, the reason I don't really, they just bleach out very easily or just die off from the base very easily. First of all, they don't make a large base, so they are more vulnerable. They're also vulnerable for anything that sticks into them, like a piece of algae or everything sticks in there, basically. And their skin is also very thin. I think the flesh is very thin on those species typically. So yeah, we do see a little bit of dieback sometimes from the bottom parts, but the causes I don't really know.
Do you think it's similar scenario to like the Hystrix, where they don't really bake out, they grow up, get to a certain size, shade themselves low and light, die or go brittle, fall down, explode into a million frags, and start again? Like the natural reef is what I'm talking about. That's what it feels like to me. It's like you're never really gonna have the perfect forever colony, if you saw. You've always got to keep smashing a bit off and starting again.
True.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of colonies can be like that as well when they get to mass. Certainly splitting them down. I know, Leo, when you were talking about the Australians, because they generally come in bigger lumps, I've had a lot of success with dividing those down into kind of more mini colonies.
Yeah.
And I find if you kind of get your Gen 2, your F2s off, your Gen 2s off earlier as frags and grow out, then I have a lot more long-term success with them.
Yeah.
I don't think you can beat Australia for diversity. I'm so hungry for some real Australian corals.
Yeah.
That grows.
Yeah, we do the same with our mother colonies. Basically, every 2-3 years, when they get quite bigger than I think 30 centimeters, we try to reset them. So basically, we just cut them up into smaller and larger frags, and just use a few of those frags as colonies, backup colonies, and use the rest for frags. But we don't let the colonies get too big, because they reach a certain stage when it gets very tricky with getting the flow in there and keeping all the detritus out. So it's better to just reset them and just cut them up, and
I almost feel like they get stale, right?
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's same as plants. You have to cut them sometimes to get some new growth out. So
Okay, 10 minutes left. Any more questions for our acro guys? Sean, Christian, Leo, have you got anything more you want to add? Actually, should we talk about nutrients? Was it nutrients or was it nutrition you wanted to?
It was trace elements. Like,
go on.
I was interested to know. I mean, I know Leonardo, you use the balling method, so you use the A and K.
Yeah.
I wondered whether there was any of those particular trace elements that you favoured over other ones. I know it's a bit in a sort of blanket approach with the A and K, but I mean, I'm an advocate for using the Triton method. So I like to pick and choose. I mean, I use the full reef version even on a system without refugium. So just because I like the extra manganese, a little bit of iron in there as well. Is there any, I guess, the trace elements that you would advise the viewers that you would choose over others? Like, there's obviously so many different. I feel like the interviewer. Why am I, Jeremy? This
No, go on.
It always seems to be an invoke trace element, doesn't it?
So let me start that again. So for me, if I can get iodine, potassium, manganese, boron, and at the moment I'm messing around with fluorine as well. If I can keep to those ones, I'd be happy to run any tank this whole entire life. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think I would always use a blend of different traces, because I think when you start adding individual traces, it can get very tricky very quickly. But if I had to choose one individual trace that I think is most important, it would be iodine, for sure.
Yeah.
I think both for coloration, but also overall health. Corals get much more susceptible for light if they are low in iodine. And I always used iodine, even like 1 drop a day in my first reef tank. And the corals you just saw immediate response in overall health and coloration. So I would definitely use iodine in every reef tank if I could choose one. But in general, I would go for a blend of everything and don't care too much about individual traces. That's my approach.
I think I'd mirror what you've just said there, Leonardo. I think every day of my reefing history, I've put a drop or two of Lugols into my system.
Top tips here, chaps. Come on, this is what we're going to finish on. I like this. So it's actually been iodine all along.
It's iodine. It's halogen, right?
Specifically, specifically the red iodine, because you also have iodine additions, which is potassium iodine, which is clear. It's a clear solution. But for some reason, that red colored Lugol's iodine, for me, has a different effect on the acros. I don't know why, because iodine is iodine in theory for the corals, but it's just a little bit different.
Who makes that? Is that Tropic Marine that's got the Lugol's?
Iod, Tropic Marine Iods are what I use. That's good.
Also what I use, And a few drops is enough. A few drops is enough.
Go on, Sean.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying I've used the Lugol's longer than I've used the specific Triton one. I've used it for dips as well. Do you know what? This is like the ultimate, or seem to be the ultimate get together of 3 stick heads. But I've got to talk about the elephant in the room, which I think, especially in my particular profession, needs to be talked about. I know we've only got 5 minutes, but we do need to talk about stopping pests from getting in your tanks and what people should be dipping with, what they should be looking out for. I know that you could do 5 hours on that subject. I know.
Okay,
But
you got about a minute and 20 each. Starting with you, Sean. Go.
Potassium iodide dip. You can do potassium chloride dip, or you can use Lugol's, depending on what the parasites are. And I would dip them every 3 to 4 days. If it's a wild import one, it's a frag from your mate, I'd probably do two dips a week apart and try and keep them isolated.
Right.
You finished ahead of time. Christian, you've got 4 minutes. Well, 2 minutes.
Well, what I'm going to say firstly is I use a combination of different dips. I'm actually going to be releasing a dip very soon, which is a combination of things, which I think is going to benefit a lot of people. And it's very gentle on the coral. I've been experimenting with that for some time. So you can have some, and yeah,
as well.
You can have some, mate. Test it out. I'll send you some, Leo. Tell me what you think.
Hey,
don't do that. Definitely don't do that. So that was the first thing. So I used that, but I used a combination of different things. 2, I think it'd probably be valuable for the hobby. I don't know if you guys are up for it, but I am. If we did this as a regular thing, maybe once a quarter, potentially, get together, because it's such an infinite topic to discuss. You can't cram it all into 2 hours.
And it has the most questions, doesn't it?
Potentially, and I think we're going to get a lot of questions after the stream's finished and published on YouTube. And yeah, thirdly, Sean, obviously you've got, did you say 50? Is it 59 tanks you're looking after?
57 that I do regularly. Yeah,
57. Do you find a lot of pests in those tanks?
Every single tank.
Wow.
But it depends what you define as being a pest.
Well, I'm talking about algae I can live with. I've come to terms with algae. If my corals look happy, I'll deal with algae. I don't care. I'd rather have happy corals. I'm talking about things that eat your corals. Those kind of pests.
Every single tank I go to.
What?
White bugs, black bugs, red bugs, flatworms, boring worms that go inside gonnies. Every people don't even realise. This is the problem, is that people don't even realise they've got a problem, and they're like, most people would look at their tanks and go, wow, that is a stunning tank, and I'm there like, you've got white bugs.
Need those micro eyes for those.
Did we not see them years ago? I don't know. I think something's changed, whether COVID changed them, bringing it, like these corals, the farms were just left unattended. I don't know. I don't know where there seems to be an influx. Maybe it's just we're selling more acros these days. I don't know.
It's a little known fact that the Reef Builders studio was full of pests as well.
Yeah.
And
Probably.
that was kind of Graceland for me. I was kind of like, Jake, how did you do it? And people got in there afterwards and they're like, oh, Jake had pests too. So there we go.
I think we wouldn't have the knowledge that we've had without going through some harsh times.
That's how we learn, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly.
And once you've been through it, you can see it a mile away.
Exactly. And there's still some out there which surprised me. Like I talked about the blue bug. I call them blue bugs. You call them slugs, was it, or something?
I call them the slugs from hell, the spawn of the devil, Satan.
Leech.
So
they are. But to a lot of people possibly watching this video, they won't know what they're looking. You could explain it to them exactly, even show them a photo, they still wouldn't see it. You have to go there and actually have eyes on the coral, which is what I do with my consultations. You know, I go in and I can see it a mile away, and I say, look, I can mess you around for the next hour, or I can tell you within 3 minutes what's wrong with your tank, and I can be on my way, mate. Because it, you know, it is like that. Fortunately.
Yeah, the messenger of doom. Darren McGinty, 11 mil a day for me. I think that's iodine. NSB Reefs, I get all the iodine I need from flatworm stop. Pete Parry, I've used iodine for 30 plus years. Lugals, I think the clear ones are iodate, ?
I think that's true, yeah.
Darren McGinty, where's the LPS trios then? When are we going to have 3 LPS heads on?
I'm out, busy that night.
Yeah, see it.
Yeah.
Is that even reefing? Sorry.
Who said it? And on that note, I just need to wrap this up for Tom. So this Sunday, we've got Sam Parker on. So that's going to be cool. Parker's Reef, Sunday morning. Next Friday, we've got the legend that is Chris Meckley from ACI Aquaculture.
That's going to be a good one.
It's going to be a good one. So
we're all battling to host that. I think everyone's been battling to co-host. I've given in. It's all right.
Well, I want a week off. Tom asked me to not help with it, be on the show a couple of weeks ago, and now he's dropped me in it, hosted it. So we're going to make sure I'm not too regular. But thanks to our guests, thanks to Christian, thanks to Sean, thanks to Leonardo's Reef, thanks to all of our 50 odd viewers and listeners. It's been awesome, and I think you're right, Christian. I think we could do acros at least 4 times a year. It goes on. So on that note, thanks everyone. Hopefully we didn't kind of drop the ball too many times, and we'll see you Sunday, and failing that, next Friday. I'm going to hit the out music.
It's been a pleasure, gents. Thank you all for joining.
Very much. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers, everyone.
Nice to meet you.